Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jacob Jewett. In today's video, I'm going to cover the CompTIA A Troubleshooting Methodology. Now, I've mentioned this methodology in previous videos, most recently in my last video called Gouging by Geeks. Sorry if I've messed that up. But I mentioned multiple times throughout that video that if you follow a troubleshooting methodology, you have better outcomes, especially when you go speak with a customer and they're talking to you about an issue and you have to listen to them, and that a lot of times helps you find out what the issue is or maybe lead you to the issue, and it just leads to better customer service. In our industry, we have a tendency to come up with our own ways of fixing issues, and a lot of times they don't really follow any kind of methodology. We go in and a customer says, oh, my Microsoft Word doesn't work, and then we go about, oh, we'll sit down and we'll fix it and we're done. The problem is if we were to follow what we learned in the CompTIA A exam and certification process, one of those being the troubleshooting methodology, we would be much better off. So it's good to follow this methodology because this is what CompTIA came up with when they went to their consortium of companies that make up the CompTIA organization. And there's companies like Microsoft, Apple, Dell, Intel, HP. All these major players are a part of CompTIA. They have a representative that basically talks to CompTIA and says, hey, this is how we would like certain things to be handled. Okay, and they also, another thing that CompTIA does is they go to a consortium of other technicians and ask them, hey, what are you doing? How do you do it? What's the best process? And it's after talking to all these companies and working with other technicians that have been in the industry for a while that they come out with these methods. So CompTIA has broken down the A+ troubleshooting methodology into 6 different distinct steps. And those steps are: 1, identify the problem; 2, establish a theory of probable cause; 3, test the theory and determine the cause; 4, establish a plan of action to resolve the problem and implement the solution; 5, verify full system functionality and, if applicable, implement preventative measures; and finally 6, document findings, actions, and outcomes. In the A+ troubleshooting methodology, our first step is identifying the problem. Now, in this day and age in technology, we have multiple ways of identifying the issue. We may get an alert by a user. We may get an alert through an email. We even may get alert, depending on our position in our job, we may even get an alert from a outsourced technology company that basically takes calls for us and does tickets for us and alerts us that way. Also, with newer systems such as Office 365 and also Windows 2012 and Windows Server 2016 and even Windows 10, we now can get alerts via email, sometimes even a pop-up on the screen, just alerting us to a quick issue. Okay, so but in our position as technicians, typically we're going to get our first alert from a user. I call users most of the time customers, and I call users customers because to me they are the customer. Now, this doesn't matter if you work in an MSP kind of landscape where you're a managed service provider and you're providing customers that pay you to help them out. And it doesn't matter if the user is a coworker. I still consider coworkers, if they're asking me a question, a customer, because I give my internal customers and my external customers the same respect, the same courtesy that I give anyone that I work for. And the reason for this is a lot of times your customers external, if you're a consultant, will garnish you money or give you money, right, to do the job. Or if you work in a corporate environment and you're working with another user, when you treat them with a customer and you treat them with the same respect and the same quality of service you would someone giving you direct money, it's more than likely that they're going to vouch for you in the future. Not only that, they're going to look favorably upon you, especially when you go up for that promotion, right? And they're going to speak highly of you when you treat people with respect, okay? So a lot of times, as I said, you'll get alerted to an issue by a user or a customer, okay? And typically they'll do it one of like 3 different ways. They'll try to call you, they'll try to message you in some way, whether it be through voicemail, hence being called, or through email or instant messenger, or even sometimes text on your phone. This is the new age. The millennials, they communicate in different ways, right? And other times you'll get alerted via a ticketing system, okay? So there's quite a few different ways. I mentioned 3 that, a little bit more, that customers will alert you to an issue. Now, sometimes you'll get a mid-level customer. And what I mean by a mid-level customer is it's a customer that is also considered the type of customer that knows enough to be dangerous, meaning that they don't know what the issue is, but they've been around computers long enough that they can give you basic terminology and they can do a better job at explaining things. Sometimes you'll have a user that's high-level customer, and a high-level customer will go even further. Maybe they're not comfortable with fixing the problem themselves, but typically by the time you show up to their location, or you read their email, or you respond to their call, they'll email you some kind of KB article that they came up with, or they did their own research on Google, or they took a screenshot of the issue when it happened. And those people will alert you to the problem and help you identify the problem faster than your first user and your most common user or most common customer. And that's the type of customer that doesn't have a clue on what's going on with the computer. Now, typically these customers are like your lawyers, doctors, some very smart people. They're smart in what they do, okay? So you have a doctor that went out, got his doctor's degree, and he can work on your pancreas. You may even trust him to yank on your boys downstairs and snip them, so whatever the case may be. That person studied to be a doctor, and they're very good at what they do. But when it comes to a computer, they don't know what they're looking at. They have no clue. And I've even had lawyers that when I go into their office, they'll point out their computer and say, I don't know what's going on with it. I'm stupid when it comes to computers. I hate computers. I'm an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times I'll have to tell the customer, hey, I do this day in and day out. I'm a technician day in and day out. Of course, I'm going to be better at working on computers than you. You ask me about law, I have no clue what you're talking about. If you tell me, what case happened when and how it relates to whatever case, I have no freaking clue, right? So you're going to encounter different levels of users, and your questions have to be geared to those users, right? So you're not going to ask a high level customer a low level question. You gotta gauge their understanding. And if you gauge their understanding, you can ask better questions and you can get to the solution faster. Now, is there a right question to ask? No. You'll typically figure that out as you go through the industry and go through your career. You'll find that there's certain questions that you kind of stick around, right? So typically I'll open up with an open-ended question like, hey, I read your ticket. In your ticket it says it just don't work. Can you explain more to me on what the computer was doing or what you were doing with the computer when you had the issue? The more you explain to me, the better I can be at solving the issue for you. So please tell me as much as you need to about what's happening. Okay? When the customer starts explaining things to you, you may know the answer right off the bat, the way they talk to you. I opened a document. I was typing in the document. I got like 3 pages done. I walked away. When I came back, my document was gone. It said the app crashed. I go to open up the application after, and when I opened it up, my document was gone. I can't find it anywhere. I know instantly, once they explain that their document's probably gone forever. And the reason for it is they didn't save when they first opened the document, right? When they first opened up Word and started a new document, they didn't go to save as and save the document right off the bat, right? And so I could be very justified in saying, well, it's gone. You're just going to have to start over because you should have hit save as when you started. You're not going to get good feedback from a customer when you say that, right? Because you're telling them that they did something wrong, but you're doing it in a way that's kind of double shocking to them. They may have spent 2-3 hours working on that document, and now they got to start over. You got to sometimes put on the kid gloves. Okay? Now, I could say that, and I could tell them that their document has gone forever, but did I truly identify the problem, or did I truly diagnose it correctly, right? Because in asking that question or giving them that answer without following up with further questions or being a positive listener or what they call an active listener, I missed some key things, right? They could tell me that they opened a document. Well, did they open a current document or a past document? Had the document been saved before? Were they editing a document? Did they open a brand new document, like start a new document within Office 365? If they're on Office 365 through the web client, when they open up the document, it automatically starts saving, which is not true for the FAT or the front end client on their machine that's installed on their local machine. The local machine's version of Word, when you open a document, if you don't hit save as, it'll lose the document. If you hit save as, it'll auto save the document. Whereas Office 365 auto saves the document once you start it. So you need to ask these kind of questions, and you need to be able to give the customer active and great feedback, right? So when the customer is explaining to you what the issue is or what they experienced as the issue, you don't repeat everything back to them. But if they say, I opened up Word, this is what happened, yada 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 yada, when they're done and you sense a pause and they kind of look to you for an answer, it doesn't hurt to say, okay, what I understand is that you opened Microsoft Word, and after opening Microsoft Word, you started a document and you started typing. Am I right so far? Yes. Okay, great. Was this a document that you had previously worked on? Yes or no? Yes, no? Okay. If it's no, okay, here's the issue. I can take a look at it, see if I can recover that for you, but more likely I won't be able to recover that document because you need to hit save as when you start. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, let me show you how to do it and what I would suggest in the future. I'm really sorry you lost your document, but hopefully with the tips I give you, you'll be able to not have that happen to you again. You know, a much more positive outcome. Okay, sometimes you'll get that user that you sit down with or you talk to and ask questions to identify the problem, and they just do not have answers for you, right? Or they're not very good at explaining what happened in the process of them losing their information or the computer failing or something like that. So if the computer's still operable and they can boot up, maybe what you'll do is have them sit down. Maybe, you know, hey, do you mind driving? You mind showing me what happened? And like go through the process that you were going through when the issue showed up. See if they can recreate the problem for you. Sometimes that will work. Sometimes that will identify the issue and you're able to look into it much further. By identifying the problem, you can then go to our next step, which is to establish a theory and probable cause, right? So you can establish a theory. I've already kind of done that previously when I said, okay, when you got on the computer, you opened up Word and you started working on a document. Did you hit save as? Okay, I've basically established a theory in my mind that the user opened a document or started a new document and proceeded to work on the document without hitting save as. Okay, so therefore I've established in my mind a theory and a probable cause for their issue. Okay, now my theory of what could have happened and what the probable cause could be could totally change depending on how the customer tells me what happened, right? So if I come in and the computer's off and it won't start up, I'll ask the customer, okay, what was going on when you were working on the computer before it died? Okay, did you adjust in your seat? Did you smell anything? Did the computer run slower before it died or turned off? Did you hear any popping noise? I'll ask him various questions to help get me to better establish the theory and probable cause. Because a computer being off when I walk in and a customer telling me it died, it could be as simple as a plug that's loose in the back of the computer. It could be that they stretched out and kicked the switch on a power strip. If they smelt something, it could be that something shorted out on the motherboard. And if it shorted out on the motherboard, it could create what's called, not what's called, but it could create an electrical smell. It smells like, the best way to describe it is like an ozone-ish smell. You'll know it when you smell it. But electronics have a very distinctive smell when they burn. And so I'll ask, was there some kind of like burning smell? Things like that. And typically I'll ask a question like, did the computer slow down over the time that you were using it? Because that can sometimes lead to overheating issue. There's an issue with the computer overheating, and a computer overheating won't exactly shut down right away. It'll degrade over a short period of time. It'll start out fast and it'll slow down, right? So through these questions, I'm establishing my theory, right? I may sit down at the computer and then look at things like the event logs. I'll look at if the user reports to me that the printer was working and all of a sudden the printer stopped working, and you look at the printer and it's got a green status light, and as far as the printer's concerned, everything's hunky-dory and fine. I may look at the computer and look into the device manager and see if the driver is showing up a fault. I may again look at the event logs and see if in the event logs there's any errors during the time reported by the user. I'll try and narrow down what the problem is. Once I've established my theory and probable cause, what I think may be the issue, I'll test my theory and determine the cause, right? And that's our next step in the troubleshooting methodology. This is step number 3. Now, step number 3, I'm going to test what I think is the problem. Now, testing it may be me going through and trying to recreate the problem. It may be me going on Google and searching out the problem and seeing if I can find someone with a similar issue, right? I'm going to look at and see if I can recreate it any way I can to see what the actual issue is, right? I want to know what the actual issue is. Because you can have false positives. You can definitely have false positives, and you can also have an issue over here actually be because of a bigger issue over here. You know, and sometimes small issues lead to bigger issues. So it's always important to actually dig in, not just go, oh, I fixed, you know, I turned on your computer, I fixed it, have a nice day, bye. You know, if I ask a customer in the process of establishing my theory, in the process of me identifying the problem, if I ask the user, hey, did you notice the computer slow down over time? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, great. What was that time period? Was it from when you sat down at it today and turned on the computer? Did its speed degrade over that session, or has it been degrading over a long period of time? If it's been degrading over a long period of time, well, it may lead to other problems on the computer, such as an old hard drive. You know, some customers look at computers as being a piece of equipment that they just install and then are done with. They never have to do maintenance on it. And you know, maybe it's been 4 or 5 years since the hard drive has been replaced or anything like that. And that's about the lifespan of a hard drive. Once you get to 3 to 4 years and over, you're really playing Russian roulette with your hard drive, and your hard drive will slow down. It will start not acting as fast as it used to. That's a little different with newer hard drives because now we have solid state, but a good 85 to 90% of the computers still out there still have the old physical hard drives, so that's still an issue, right? So I'll establish a plan of action. Now, this is again our fourth step in the process. After I've established a theory, after I've tested my theory, testing my theory may be opening the side of the case and seeing if there's a bunch of dust bunnies in there. I test my theory. I think the computer is overheating, so I open the side of the computer. Oh, well, it's overheating because there's a bunch of dust in here. Okay, so that'll take me to my fourth step, which is establish a plan of action and resolve the problem and implement a solution. So if I open up that computer case and I see there's a bunch of dust bunnies in there, my solution may just be grabbing a can of chemical air, or if I have an air compressor that has a dehumidifier on it, basically something that takes the liquid out of the compressed air on it, I may use a compressor at low PSI to blow it out, or I may use my chemical canned air to blow it out and get all the dust bunnies out of it. Hopefully outside of the location of where you found this computer, but dust bunnies create a blanket on the computer, therefore creating heat, and will cause issues and will cause that computer to degrade its speed over a shorter period of time as it heats up and starts to overheat, right? So that may be my plan of action for that, right? And when I try to resolve the problem doing that, right? I'll get the dust bunnies out of it, test it, see if the computer's faster, see if it stays operational longer than it was before, make sure the customer's happy. And then what I'll do is I'll implement a solution. I may talk to the customer and say, hey, this piece of equipment is not like your cable box that you set on top of your TV and you forget about until you pay the bill. No, this computer, depending on the location, does need basic maintenance, does typically need work performed on it, right? So it may need preventative maintenance, such as coming every 3 months and blowing it out. Or if the customer is one of those mid-level or higher level customers that I talked about earlier, maybe you even show them how to blow out their own computer and tell them what to look for and how to do it and be careful and stuff like that. I'm all about educating my users. Some techs aren't. Some techs are about keeping the customer in the dark because, gee whiz, they'll call me the next time. I found that when I inform my users of how to take care of the problem themselves, a lot of times, if they feel comfortable in doing that, they're more apt to calling me in the future because they know that I'm there in their best interest and not to just dig into their pocket every chance I get, right? So it never hurts to solve the problem, and maybe your solution, or implementing your solution, is informing the user on how to properly fix the problem in the future. So let's say the customer has a accounting software, for example, QuickBooks, and in trying to open a company file, they find out that the file is corrupt. Well, your plan of action to resolve the problem may be that you go to a previous backup. Well, if they don't have a backup, maybe what you have to do is you have to use Intuit's tools to restore the database, basically uncorrupt the database, repair the database, right? So your plan of action may be calling Intuit and getting support to help you with doing that, right? And once you solve the problem, maybe your implementation of the solution wasn't only solving the problem, but also informing the user on how to properly back up their files, okay? Whether it be accounting software or any other file. Once you've established a plan of action and you've resolved the problem, you're going to go to our fifth step, which is to verify full functionality and, if applicable, preventative measures, right? So we've already kind of covered that in the fact that, it never hurts to inform the customer on how to solve their own problem sometimes, right? So I've gone as far as in the past that, in my process of establishing a plan for a solution, I found out that the customer, had an 18-year-old son that was going to porn sites all the time, and he was going to, the free porn sites that you just find, and he was getting viruses and malware and stuff like that. So eventually my solution to the customer was, well, he's going to do it, you're not going to stop him, might as well pay for it. Instead of paying me, maybe go to a legit site to stop this from happening, stop you from having to pay me, $75 at the time or whatever an hour to fix a problem that's going to keep reoccurring if you don't come up with a different solution, right? So maybe, the solution is not always the best solution, but it's a solution. In the fifth step, you're going to verify full system functionality, and you're going to try to implement implement preventative measures, right? So after you've established your plan, after you've done the actions that you feel that will solve the problem for the customer, you're going to sit that customer down and you're going to have them walk through the process again, right? If they opened up a financial software and that's where the problem was, you're going to have them open that financial software and try the steps they tried before and make sure that they can actively use that software without having that issue pop up again. Okay? If in your troubleshooting theory, in coming up with your probable cause, you may have looked at Event Viewer and saw that in Event Viewer there was errors that would pop up when the user initially opened the application, right? It would alert you to certain things happening in the background and that may be causing the problem, right? So after you've implemented your action and after you're going to verify the full system functionality, you may go back to Event Viewer at the end of the whole process and see if those events are still popping in. See if those errors are still coming up. If they're not coming up, then you've done something right? If the customer can do what they need to do without having any issues, then you've done your part. And making sure that the customer's happy, right? So preventive measures in that I've already stated would be backing up the files on a regular basis. Hopefully, they don't have a problem with their customers' data getting corrupted again. If you go to a customer that had a virus on their computer and you cleared off the virus for them, maybe if it's the first time they called you, you cleared off the virus, you cleaned up their system, you verified through your reporting tools that you use, like if you use like malware bytes, when you go to the scan log, you see that it's cleaned out. You've tested the system. You made sure that they can do everything they need to do. You hopefully leave their system with some kind of preventative measure on there. For example, updated antivirus software. And then hopefully as another preventative measure, you've talked to the customer about possibly, using safer websites or, what to look out for when they're on a website. If they get a suspicious pop-up, how to get away from it without clicking on it. If they open email, if they were a victim of phishing, right? If they opened up an email and it looked like it was from their bank, how to identify if it was actually from their bank or not, right? Call the bank, ask the bank, do you guys send out this kind of communication, right? Or maybe even, hovering over a link to see where the link actually goes without clicking it. Things like that. There's different ways of creating preventative measures so that the customer doesn't have this problem again, right? So in our example of the customer with the virus on their computer, if you clean off the virus and you verify it with the customer's happy, 3 weeks later you get called back and the customer's got another virus on their computer, you may need to take additional measures to make sure that customer doesn't get infected again. If they're a perpetual person that gets viruses every time you turn around and they turn into a good profit center for you, that's not always a good thing, right? So maybe, the third or fourth time they call you, you dig deeper and you may not see things that you want to see, but sometimes as a technician we have to do that to better inform our customers, because our customers a lot of times don't know right from wrong on the computer. Finally, in step 6, this is the step that almost every technician I've met, except for a very seldom few, has always skipped this step, and is quite possibly the worst step to skip. Okay, aside from totally ignoring your user and just like going in there and saying, done, fixed it, I'm out of here. The worst step you can miss is the documentation of the findings, actions, and outcomes. Okay, documentation in our industry is everything. Okay, you need to document, what the customer told you. You need to document what steps you took to solve the problem. You need to document, the end result. You need to document everything, right? Not only for your own records, but also something that you can leave with the customer. Because the problem is a lot of times customers don't understand the actual work we do. If you're working in front of a customer at their place of business or at their home, sometimes it could look like you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, right? Because you'll do a command on the computer and you'll have to wait for something to complete, right? So that's the reason a lot of times I'll ask my customers, hey, can I take this back to my shop, take care of it? When I'm done, can I bring it back out to you? I could probably have it back out to you within 24 hours. Or if I'm not very busy, I could probably have it back to them same day, right? But I'll typically ask if I can take it back to my shop and do it rather than stay at their home or sometimes their place of business. Because the process I need to do to solve the problem, let's say it's a virus, I got to clean off a virus. To clean off that virus may take me 2 or 3 hours to complete. But if I stay at their place of business or at their home, that 2 or 3 hours it takes me to complete because of the scans or what have you, I'm literally sitting there twiddling my thumbs, maybe chatting with them, but I'm having to bill them for my time, right? Because if I work for a repair company or I work for an IT company, I'm under someone else's dime. I'm under my employer's dime. So therefore he or she is billing me out at a certain amount an hour, and I'm required to charge that amount per hour, right? So in front of the customer, that's going to cost quite a bit of money, 3 hours of work, right? If I can take it into the shop, I can take that 3 hours and whittle it down to 45 minutes to an hour. Because while I'm waiting for that customer's computer to complete a scan or a process, I can be working on another customer's computer, okay? So I can be working on multiple customers at a time and actually save them all time and money, and in return actually make more of a profit because I can put 5 computers in the same billable hour rather than I sit there and spend all my time on one computer and basically just charge the customer like crazy, right? So that's not my goal. My goal is to solve the customer's issue. So I'll try my best to do that. Now that creates somewhat of a problem, right? Because number one, if we go the first route where I stay at the customer's location, they see me for 2 or 3 hours sitting there twiddling my thumbs. And every, 30 minutes or something, I may click, I may do some stuff on the computer, and then I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs. And I may have to explain to the customer, hey, there's not much I can do. I got to sit here and wait, right? Well, if I don't document what I did, in the customer's eyes, they just saw me sit there for 3 hours and do nothing, right? And yet they're getting a bill for $375 or something stupid like that, right? So the best thing I could do is document what I do, okay? When I started a scan, when the scan ended, what I did in between the scan, if it's a scan that I can do and do other things while the scan's going on, I may do that, I'll try to find things that I can do to help that customer with. I've had customers that while I'm working on their computer getting a virus off of it, they stick another laptop in front of me and I do work for them on that. I have no problem with that. I bill on time. So whatever I do in that time frame, I don't care, right? So in that process, I have to be able to document so that when I bill the customer, the customer understands that I in fact did something, that they are getting something in return for the money that they are giving me, right? You'll have some customers that will see you do this with no documentation and be totally fine with giving you the money that they're giving you, right? Then you'll have the other customers that want you to almost itemize everything you did. So be ahead of them, document, right? The other thing I'll do is, let's say I go the other scenario, I take the computer back to my shop and work on it. I'll still document everything I did. It's just I have times that I can document the time that I got on the computer, I started to scan, and the time I spent doing this or that task. And then at the end of the document, I could say, hey, customer, I saved you this much money because since I brought it into my shop, I was able to take a 3-hour process and only bill you an hour, because that's the time I actually spent touching your computer or doing something on your computer, right? So, maybe to start a scan, install the software to do the scan, what have you, make sure it's updated and stuff. That takes me 15 minutes. I start the scan, I walk away, I do something else, I come back, I uninstall that software. Once it's completed, I view the logs, I verify what it removed, what it didn't remove, verify things can work. I start another scan to verify the previous scan, what have you. I document all that. I can then justify how much I'm charging the customer, right? I can also make sure that the customer is happy and knowing what happened with their system, right? So documenting is important in that aspect of working with the customer. But what if you work in a shop where you work with other IT professionals? Okay, when you work in a shop with other IT professionals, if the shop is operating correctly, you're working as a team. As a team, a lot of times you will not personally go to the same customer every time. Typically what will happen is when a customer submits a ticket, that ticket will be handled by whatever team member picks it up first. Okay, whoever's free to pick it up. You may be off at XYZ company, okay, and you previously took care of ABC company, but while you're at XYZ company, ABC company calls in with an issue. Well, your buddy, technician number 2, has to be able to pick up where you left off or understand what issues ABC company has had in the past to better service that company, right? Because when you work as a team, your common goal is to make sure that all of your customers are happy. If you keep that information secret to yourself, if you do not properly document that information, then your buddy technician that goes out there to cover you while you're working on another customer is going to look like a complete idiot. And in return, he's going to make your company look like an idiot, because he's going to be asking he or she is going to be asking the questions that you've already asked the customer. He or she is going to have problems getting the information they need. They're going to repeat a lot of things that you've done in the past. Whereas if you document what you did, what the outcomes were, if they get called out for the same issue that you worked on previously, they can see what you did, right? They can see what your outcomes were. Okay, so if they go do a search and they see that what you did was the same solution that they're now researching, they may want to try a different solution. And the only way they know that is if you've documented the information that you covered before. Okay, so again, through this video, we've gone over the A+ troubleshooting methodology. And we've covered our 6 steps, which is identify the problem, establish a theory and probable cause, test the theory and determine the cause, establish a plan of action and resolve the problem, implement the solution, and verify full system functionality, and if applicable, implement preventative measures, and then finally document findings and actions and outcomes, right? So this is the standard methodology that you should follow as you troubleshoot a system or you work with a customer. If you follow this methodology, you will more times than not be successful, right? I mean, you can't really go wrong if you do your research in a stepped manner and understand the process in which to do it. Now, through this video, I've said a lot of things like, you know, the customer's having a problem with this software, or you should go check out Device Manager, or you should look at event logs and understand what event logs are telling you, or you should look up a KB article and stuff like that. I will cover those topics, and I will cover how to go about doing that in a future video, hopefully really soon. But I want to thank you for joining me for this video, and I hope this has helped you in hopefully many ways, but hopefully has helped you however it has. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section of this video, and all my contact information is available in every description of every video I do. And I'll also leave a link in this video to the CompTIA A Troubleshooting Methodology, and maybe even some source material so that you can kind of get more information on this if I wasn't clear enough. Thank you again, and you have a great day.